Jesus is out teaching. He's out and about. He's healing people. He's sharing with people. He's eating and sharing meals with people. He's performing miracles. He's teaching about the kingdom of God. He's correcting the priests, the scribes, the Pharisees on their views of things. And when we get to chapter 13, that's where we're at. And Jesus is teaching in parables. He's teaching some parables, some stories. And it says, starting in verse 53, when he had finished teaching there in parables, he went away from there, and coming to his hometown, he taught them in their synagogue. And they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is his mother not called Mary? Are not his brothers James and Joseph, Simon and Judas?" Not the same Judas. "And are not his sisters with us? And then where then did this man get all these things?" And they took offense at him. So they had an understanding of who the Messiah was going to be, what he was going to be like. They had a perception, I shouldn't say an understanding. They had their view, they had a vision of what they expected to come, what they expected it to be like. And that vision, or that expectation that they had, made it difficult for them to see what was right in front of their eyes. Not only that, but they had a picture or a vision of Jesus. That's the carpenter. What's his name? Joseph. That's his son, right? Mary. We know Mary. Oh, Mary. Yeah, you know the one that had the child before she was that Mary. That's her son. We know who this Jesus is. We see his brothers, James and Joseph. We know those guys. They looked at Jesus and they saw just another common guy in a small town, and didn't look any deeper to see if there was something more to him than that. So it's again their vision or their expectations or the way they saw things with their own eyes not only prevented them from seeing the Messiah, but prevented them from recognizing who Jesus was at the same time. And that's what I wanted to look at, was how our vision, our eyes, our perception of what we see in front of us sometimes still is off, and we miss out on things, and we're just not aware of some things. So that's what I wanted to get to. But one of the things I saw was pretty cool, that it talks about that Jesus had brothers and sisters. One of his names, James. Can you imagine having Jesus as your older brother? The pressure that you have. Every time you do something wrong or not quite perfect, come on, James. Don't you be more like Jesus? Don't you be a little bit more like Jesus? I bet James followed Jesus around everywhere Jesus went. You follow your older brother around. Whatever your older brother does, you want to do things. One time, James almost drowned because of that. Jesus walked on water. James was trying to follow him. So James would go to his mom and dad. You know, it was difficult being the younger brother of Jesus, right? Your older brother is just perfect all the time, never does anything wrong. That's a lot of pressure on you. So James, every once in a while, would come to Mary and Joseph and just kind of, complain, or maybe, just share what his problems were. Or he's having a hard time with this or with that. Some of the kids are saying, "You're not as cool as Jesus. You can't do the things Jesus did." So James would come to, this is not in the Bible, so I'm just imagining what it's like. So James would come to Mary and Joseph, and he would share his problems and what's going on in his life. And Joseph and Mary always had the same response. And it would be, "Well, James, what would Jesus do?" Over and over again, what would Jesus do? And as a reminder, they gave James a bracelet to wear. And it said, WWJD, what would Jesus do? So here's James walking around all of his life. And every time he starts to do something, what would Jesus do? But he ended up making a lot of money because he sold the bracelets. So That's what I want to look at. What would Jesus do? WWJD, except for I want to change it today. And I want it to be WWJS. What would Jesus?
Yeah, what would Jesus do last year?
Say? Not say. That'd be good. What would Jesus say in that moment? But that's kind of like do. What would Jesus see? What would Jesus see in that moment? Now, what would God see when He looks at this person or that person or this situation? So it's one thing to say, what would Jesus do in the moment about His action? But God and Jesus talk a lot about what's in our heart. You know, what we perceive in our heart. So it's not always just about what we do, but it's about what's in our heart and how we see things, and how we perceive things. So I want us to start to focus on what would Jesus see? How would God see things? There's so many times where we see this happening in Scripture where people look at things one way and it turns them out to be another. So right around this time, Jesus was teaching in the synagogue and probably upsetting some people. And so probably Mary, the Bible tells us that Mary and his brothers were standing outside waiting to see him. They sent somebody in and said, can you bring Jesus out? I imagine that they wanted to express their concerns with Jesus because people are starting to get upset. Jesus is maybe upsetting the leaders, the scribes, the Pharisees. He's teaching with authority, although he has no formal training. He's performing these wonderful acts, miracles. And some people are even accusing him of having the power of the devil rather than the power of God. And so they're standing outside. Can you tell Jesus, man, we want to talk. This is his family, his brothers and his mom. And that's the way we see things. You have brothers, sisters, close personal friends, moms, uncles, somebody close to you. That's how you picture, these are the people who are close to me. This is my brother, this is my sister. And they tell Jesus, hey, your mom's outside and your brothers, and they want to speak to you. And Jesus says, well, he answers them, who's my mother? Who's my brother? He asks them a question. And he says, my mother and brother are those who hear the word of God and do it. So he said, it's not those close people, those ones that are the closest to you, your family, your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad. He says, no, wait a minute. My mother, my brother, my sister, those are the people who hear my word and do the word of God. How would our perception change if, so who here's got a brother? Who here's got a sister? Who here's got a mom? Some people don't, didn't. A dad? How would our perception change if you think of those close relationships? You know, some of them might not have been as close as other ones, but think of the real close, true, real friendships or family relationships that you have, and then look at it the way Jesus looks at it and says, well, my mother, my brother, those people, they're anyone who hears the word of God, believes in the word of God, and does the word of God. That's all of them. Those are my brothers and my sisters. How would our perception change if you looked at him the same way you would look at your brother or your dad? How would your perception change if you looked at this person here who you haven't even met and said, I'm going to look at her the same way I see my mom, the same way I see my daughter. I'm going to care for him the way I would care for my son. How would things change if we had that view that they're just as precious? I don't have the same friendship and the same relationship, but that they're just as precious to me, just as important to me as my actual brother or my actual sister. So often, God sees things that we don't. And we see stuff that God looks so far past. There's a story in 1 Samuel where God instructs Samuel. He's done with Saul. God didn't want Saul as a king of Israel. And he says, go to Bethlehem and find Jesse, one of his sons I have selected as the king. One of Jesse's sons is going to be the king. So Samuel sets off to Bethlehem and finds Jesse and tells him what's going to go on. And they have this whole kind of meeting. And Jesse's, I've got several sons, and yeah, they great ones, but I think my son Eliab, he's kind of the leader of the family, of the kids, so that's the one he presents to Samuel, and the Lord says to Samuel, no, that's not him. That's not the one. Now, Eliab was probably, because God says to him, don't look at his appearance or his height or his stature, because I have refused him. He's not the one that I'm selecting. So we, and probably even Jesse, the father, and Samuel all look at, he would make a great king. Oh, he's big, he's strong, he's tall, he speaks well, he does this, he does that. He's a natural leader. He would make a great king. And wow, the nation of Israel would really receive him because he is what we would expect in a king. And God says, no. That's not the one. And one by one, he goes through and presents his sons, and God says, no, that's not the one, that's not the one, until there's no more sons left. So Samuel says, well, do you have any other children? And Jesse says, yeah, David. He's out tending the sheep, little scrawny David. He's out there, he's a shepherd boy. Surely it wouldn't be him. So bring in David, and God tells him, that's the one. That's the one. So over and over again, we see it's not what we perceive, it's what God sees. Because this is the one that I've chosen. This is the one. This is what I see. Nobody else, even David's father Jesse, did not envision David being selected as a king. But God did. The Lord says to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have refused him, talking about the older brothers. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. That's the point. God doesn't see things the way we see things. God doesn't look at each other, us here, and see things the way we see things. He doesn't look at our outward appearance. He doesn't look at your job, your status, your clothes, your car. He doesn't look at how well you speak. He doesn't look at how well you're doing, how everybody around you looks up to you or looks down to you. He doesn't look at any of that. He looks at your heart. He looks past everything and looks at your heart. What is it that you feel? How do you love? How do you see other people? What's in your heart? And he chose David because he calls David a man after his own heart. His heart was longing for God, longing to know God, to feel the presence of God, to understand God. That's the heart he was seeking. That's the heart he was looking for. And we don't do it that way. We look at things differently. We look at what we can perceive. So the idea here is we have to train ourselves to see things differently. So somebody who is suddenly blind, no longer see, has to train themselves to be able to see. They have to learn to reread. They have to learn to walk. They have to learn all sorts of new things. But then if you talk to somebody who's blind, what do you find out maybe? That they perceive things that we don't. That they get stuff that we miss, that we don't pick up on. So this is the way we're supposed to do this here as we become believers in Jesus Christ. We're told we're a new creation. We're becoming new again. We're to become more and more Christ-like. So one of the ways that we're to do that is to start trying to see people and see the world the way Christ sees the world. And that takes training. That takes practice. We have to do this. We have to look at people. And my first reaction is I might think this, but I have to say, well, wait a minute. How would God do this? So here's our little exercise for today. That piece of paper that you have, let's see, we're going to do think like a tic-tac-toe board, like that. Okay? That's what I want you to do, just like a tic-tac-toe. In the top corner up here, I want you to think of somebody, and you don't have to share whatever. You put initials if you want to, but I want you to think of somebody that you care about, somebody that's close to you. It can be a sibling, a brother or sister. It can be a spouse. It can be close friend. And I want you to put their initials up here. Okay? And then without thinking too much through, see, because when you think about it, you start to think of, well, what's the right answer? And you start to put the right answer in. So this is like a speed test, okay? So underneath that, the person that, those initials that you put there, sorry. What I want you to do right underneath that is very quickly, you got 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, to write down a few words that describe that person. How do you see that person? Go, real fast. How do you describe that person? All right, stop.
All right, this one.
All right, underneath that, right underneath that, I want you to write very quickly, without thinking, because if you start thinking about it, you're going to start thinking, what am I supposed to write? I don't want you to write what you're supposed to write. I want you to write the words that come to mind. What does God think of that person? And write that in that line. All right, go ahead and stop. Now those two descriptions, are they similar to each other? Are they similar to each other? Okay. All right, now in the next one on the top, I want you to think of somebody that you know that you have a difficult time with. Maybe somebody that you just dislike. Maybe somebody that just hurt you. Maybe somebody that you don't have a whole lot of respect for. Maybe somebody that you just don't like to be around too much. I want you to put their initials up there. Now, if you're sitting next to the person, just cover it up. So you put their initials there. Okay? Now I want you to do the same thing without thinking too much. Without, what's the right thing to write down? Just on it. You're not going to turn these in. There is no test or grade. This is for you to look at and then to fold up and burn afterwards. Okay? But that person that you put the initials down, when you think of them, what are you supposed to think? What words come to mind? What honest, real words come to mind? Put them in the box underneath that. Okay, now underneath that, I want you to write down how you think God sees that person. Real quick. How do you think God sees that person? Okay. Do those two look similar or different? Totally different. If we're honest, they look different. Okay, so now we have to look at what happened. Because it's a person, it's God, and it's us. What changed? Well, it's not God, because God doesn't change. God's the same all the time. So what changed? Our perception, or our love. The way we love somebody has changed. So over here, it's so easy to love the person that we like, that we care about. Over here, it's very different. We see this person differently. We see this person differently than God sees this person. So we're not looking through the eyes of Christ. When we're doing that, we're looking through our own eyes, our own thoughts. So that's what we have to do. When I see somebody that I struggle with, okay, I have to be a little more careful. I have to say, okay, I've got to look at them a little bit differently. I've got to try to see what they look like through God's eyes. That person that I look like, maybe put their initials down, oh man, maybe they're annoying. Maybe I just don't have the patience for them. Maybe I'm just angry at them about something in the past. Maybe, how does God look at them? My creation. I designed them in the womb just like you. I picked out their traits. I formed their character. I love them just as much. And even if we look at that square that we wrote, how we describe them, maybe we describe them in that center circle as a sinner. You know, that's how we kind of describe them. We describe their flaws. They're a sinner. Well, remember that verse in Romans 5:8? While we were sinners, Jesus Christ died for us. While we were still sinners, Jesus Christ died for us. That means while they might be sinners too, Jesus Christ died for them also. How can we say to Jesus, Lord, I love you, I praise you, I thank you, but I don't really like the people that you died for, that you loved so much, that you came down and cared for and wanted to save and rescue, that you didn't want anyone to perish. I just don't like them, Lord. That's difficult. That's difficult. One last one. In this last block over here, I want you to write me. Not me. M-E. Me. And then I want you to look at yourself really quick and be honest. Remember, you're not sharing this with anybody. How would you describe yourself? What do you see in yourself? And now quickly underneath that, honestly, when you're talking to God, and you're praying, and you're thinking about God, what do you think He sees in you? Write that down real fast. What do you think God sees when He looks at you? How do those two compare? And not only how do those two compare, but remember the person that you say that you love or that you care about, and you said, well, how does God look at them? Compare that bottom square on the right, on the left, to the bottom square on the right. The person that you love, that you care about, how did you describe what you think God looks at them? And when you look at yourself, how do you think God looks at you? Are they the same? Or are they different? We struggle so much because of the way we see things. Because we see things through our own eyes, through our own understanding. We don't see things through the way that God sees things. Think of all the instances in the Bible where, let's see, Zechariah and Abraham, they perceived, they saw themselves, they looked in the mirror, and they said they were too old to do what God asked them to do. God says, absolutely not. You're just the person that I want for this job. You're the exact person I want for this job. In fact, I planned this since before you were born, that this was going to be your job. They didn't see themselves the way God saw them. Think of Peter and some of his friends. Fishermen. Now, if you thought the king was coming, God himself was coming down, we might think he would surround himself with some pretty important people. And so how do you think Peter saw himself as just a fisherman when Jesus came and called him? Do you think Peter had doubts? He did, because what did he say? What did he say to Jesus on one of their encounters when they were fishing? Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. Is that what he said? This is Peter, great Peter. Who Jesus said, Peter, on you, I'm going to build my church. Peter, I'm going to call you out onto the water, let you walk on the water. Peter says to Jesus, when he sees Jesus' power and majesty, he says, Lord, depart from me. Just go away from me, because I'm a sinful man. I'm just not good, Lord. That's how Peter saw himself. And Jesus says, Peter, I am picking you for one of the most important jobs in the history of the world. You're going to be starting my church. Peter didn't see himself, and probably the people around him didn't see him the way that God saw him, the way that God picked him. Who else can we think of? Some of the characters in the Bible, the poor old widow, the man with leprosy, how everyone around them looked at them with disgust. How did Jesus look at them? With nothing but love, compassion, healing. How about Paul? How do we look at Paul?
Look at the story.
We need more paper? The Apostle Paul. What was he before he was the Apostle Paul? He was the guy throwing Christians in jail, watching them get beaten, watching Stephen get stoned to death. He was the guy trying to get rid of the Christians. How did the Christians, the early Christians, feel about Paul? I would say they probably were afraid. Well, we can see in Scripture they were afraid of him. They were absolutely afraid of him. They probably had some hatred towards him. They probably disliked him quite a bit. I know we're not supposed to hate because we're newborn Christians, but that's how we as humans do things sometimes. We get angry, and they just did not like Paul. They didn't trust even after Paul was converted. They didn't trust him at all. They saw in Paul's past. They saw Paul as who he was. They saw the worst in him. What did Jesus see? He saw a man that he was going to use to spread the gospel throughout the world. That's how Paul saw it. That's how Jesus saw Paul. So differently than the way we see things. So I found a video. I had to edit it because it was quite long. It's a skit that just around. And the guy walks around and he's just kind of like moaning and groaning about all the people around him, and someone gives him a magic pair of glasses that allows him to see the way God can see. And so I'm going to play it. It's kind of neat, but then I have a point after it. So.
Kid, every time I'm pulling out, he's right there. Man, and someone needs to talk to his parents if they're ever at home. What is up with the traffic today? It's always, every day, this intersection's always crowded. I hate pulling out of here. I need some of these dumb roads. Oh, there's... Oh. Okay, so I'm not even here. Right. Great lady. The princess of parking. Oh, sure. Take the spot. Way to be considerate. Oh, are you kidding me? Unbelievable. Oh.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
It's about time. Let's see, what do I want?
Yeah, could I add a cookie to that order?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no problem, only guy in the world. I'm sure you need your cookie. The world, your oyster, and he's serving your cookie.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.
What can I get for you?
Yeah, I'll have a tall decaf macchiato.
Yeah, sure, no problem. $3.85. And it might take a few minutes here. We've got quite a line, obviously, and thanks for your patience.
Great. Yeah, great. Great for me. Winning again. Unbelievable. What? What is... What is that? What in the world? What am I supposed to do? How can I do anything about that? Can I even help with that? I don't...
Your coffee, sir.
Oh. I can't take this anymore. I gotta get out of here.
Hey, what?
Hey, buddy, come here.
There's a verse in John's Gospel 13. A new commandment I give to you. Can anyone finish that? A new commandment I give to you. That you love one another just as I have loved you. We kind of go past that sometimes. Love one another the way I have loved you. That's Jesus' commandment. Love one another the way I have loved you. How do we love somebody? So Jesus loved people by seeing past what the world's perception was. Jesus loved people by seeing beyond that, by looking into people's hearts and loving them. He loved them as His creation. He loved them as people. He didn't care so much about the situation or the circumstances of their lives. That didn't affect how His love was for them. So we're called to love people the way Jesus loved people. So I think the commandment is to see people the way Jesus sees people. To look at people and see them the way that Jesus would see them. How would it be so I saw that video last night, and I quickly got on Amazon and I ordered myself a pair of those special glasses. So I'm going to try them on for the first time and see if they work when I put them on. A little blurry. What would it be like if I could put on one of those magical pairs of glasses and not walk around and see, hey, there's my annoying neighbor Chris who's always blasting his car motors in the middle of the night. And I put my glasses on and say, hey, there's my neighbor Chris who loves his name. Chris, you know what? This is the way God would see it. And so God would say, I gave you that talent. I blessed you with those abilities. I did that. I love that you're out there fixing those things and working on those things and teaching your daughters how to do that. I love the way I made you. That's the way God would see it. And then I take my eyes off it and I met Jillian. I don't even know Jillian. She's a visitor. She'll come. She'll go. I don't know. I haven't met her before. But then I put on God's eyes and I look and say, oh yeah, I created her. I designed her. Man. Every time I look at you through God's eyes, I have nothing but love. Like the thoughts that you have, and the feelings that you have, the compassion, I gave all that to you. What a beautiful person. Do you guys see the beautiful person that I created? Do you see that? And I take my eyes, I'm looking at Pat's heart. Oh, there it is! Wouldn't it be great if I could not just see him as a close personal friend, but see him as a brother? If I looked at him through the eyes of Christ and said, wow, this is my brother. Not just my friend or my neighbor, this is my brother. He is just as important to me as my brother that I grew up with all those years ago. In fact, he's that close. I'd do anything. My brother, I would die for you. That's how close you are. That's how important you are to me. I don't see all those flaws. All those flaws. I do see them. Oh, not anymore. I don't. I don't see any of them. Wouldn't that be cool if we could do that? If I could look and I see, here's Doug. He's kind of sitting here back by himself. He's kind of quiet back here. And then I put on God's eyes and I look and I say, I had such a great plan for you. There's this little kid named Devin. I'm going to have you take care of him, guide him, mentor him, teach him about him, bring him to church. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. That's the way God will look at him and see him. We don't. We just say, hey, Doug, how you doing? Cold outside today? That's what we do. Yes, we don't look at people and see people for the treasure that they are. God wants us to look at people that that way. I know, you want me to go to every single person? I can't do that. If you want to leave, the game's going to start in 7 hours. But this is our challenge.
Yes, it is.
This is our challenge. So this is our command. To love one another the way Jesus loved us.
Amen.
And He loved us by looking at us through His eyes, through the eyes of God. Looking at us as His creation, that He uniquely designed each of us, that He cares about us. I mean, these are the verses that He loves you so much that He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows everything. He knows your thoughts. He knows your heart. He can't stop thinking about you. In fact, He loves you so much that despite all those flaws and failures and sins, He says, you know what? I'm going to come down and I'm going to take the blame, the shame, the punishment. I'm going to take it all. I'm going to take it all upon myself. I'm going to die on the cross so you're set free from all that stuff. So that not only I see you as this beautiful treasure, but that my Father in heaven will no longer look at you as sinful, will no longer see your sins, will no longer see your failures, will no longer see all that awful stuff, but He will only see His child. He will only see Jesus Christ covering you in His me. That's our challenge. Every person, whether it's somebody you just met this morning, whether it's somebody we've known for years, whether it's somebody we struggle with, that we argue with, that we don't like, or whether it's somebody we love, our challenge is to love them the way Christ did, to look at them through the eyes of Christ, every single one, see them the way Jesus sees them.
Amen. Amen.
No, really, you should try these on.